Scared them all off.
I was gonna take Phil out. I'm taking Phil out for a minute.
Is it all?
Is it all what?
Everything's live and everything's good?
Well, it's getting there. I think.
Now, where is everybody? Did they quit us?
Nah, surely not.
We finally sent them over the edge. Everybody, did they quit us?
Oh, I got the echo on. Wow, that's weird. Let's see if anybody shows up. I got something really cool to show, so if nobody else shows up, we'll watch a video.
Is it a training video?
No, it's really good, though. I think you'll like it. Phil's talking. We can't hear him.
Oh, there's Michael.
Mike, good morning, Mike. Tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and bring Phil in. I have guests.
You can always count on the Canadians.
Yo ho ho.
Hey, I went ahead and brought you in because it's live anyway. So, and we got Mike in here today. Mike Cabral is Meet Phil Dalton, if you haven't before.
Yeah. Hi, Mike.
Mike is mainly our main Canadian fan or friend. Mike and his wife Diana. Got any? Right. Did you bring the donuts this morning, Mike? Hey,
Mike, your people are doing really good in Saddle Bronc at NFR.
I told him the other night, Thursday night, he was in my show, and I told him I think that was the night or
Dawson Hay won the round last night.
Well, how about his brother?
It's been bouncing back and forth between him and his little brother.
Oh no donuts this morning.
Tim Hortons was closed.
He's got must have because I've seen Tim Hortons. You know, I've heard that Tim Hortons read his desk sometimes. Hopefully nothing's wrong, Mike, to get up at the break of dawn. And then I got to ask you, did you mean the top end desk of dawn? Is that a Canadian saying?
I never heard anyone say that at Standard Arrow.
I don't like the Tim Hortons by my house. I don't get free stuff there. Well, then in that case, I wouldn't either. Which one? What kind of free stuff do you get, Mike? If there was one nearby or a little bit further away that I got free stuff by, I'd go there every time.
Yesterday's cream horns or whatever.
Yeah. I hadn't had a cream horn in a long time. Mark, do you remember, or Phil, do you remember banana flips?
Oh, yeah.
Banana flips?
Yeah, that was a Mickey's cake, I think.
I don't remember.
At least the company that sold them up in Akron was Mickey's.
Well, they're a little bit like a big Twinkie in a way, but it's like a taco. It's folded over, and it's got a banana cream in it, and it's banana flavored, basically. It's got full of this delicious white cream. And man, those things were good. And every once in a while, I just love to get a banana flip. And they're no longer. Apparently, they're extinct.
They're extinct?
I'm afraid so. Mike says closer to my shop where I work. Now, the girls the girls know me by face, so I get my order put out when I pull up.
That's like Norm on Cheers.
That means you're a regular, Mike.
My donut's waiting on me before I
got you set up, ready to go.
Hey, John. Welcome in,
John. Good morning, John.
Dogs from outside. They're chasing bunnies. Well, we'll be here when you get back, John, if you have to step away. I don't know if you remember John, but John's from New Jersey.
Ah, okay.
Former Air Force guy, worked on missiles out in Mark country.
Huh.
Worked out there in the old prairie east of Cheyenne and north.
Yeah, and
Sitting in a hole underground.
part of the time, yeah, but he moved. I think he moved around from hole to hole because he was some kind of electronic specialist, I believe.
My car insurance guy in Smyrna was a Titan missileer or whatever out in Arkansas.
Oh, in Arkansas, John might know him. You never know.
He sat in his name was Stephen Threet, and he sat in a bunker underneath, wherever in Arkansas.
Did you ever go through? I don't know if you've been up that high. Mark took me out to the prairie of western prairie and eastern prairie of Wyoming and Nebraska. Western Nebraska, eastern Wyoming, and showed me. And he wasn't taking me to show me missile silos, but we did. I saw one. I said, "What the hell's that?" And it just looked like this pretty harmless concrete pad out there, in the middle of nowhere with a fence around it,
like a big giant sewer lid.
Yeah, kind of. It's unimaginable, the death and destruction below that lid.
Yeah,
well,
I've not been any farther north in the middle of, going across I-70 because that
comes out of Colorado, right?
It crosses through Denver, and you go through Eisenhower Tunnel and come off the other side there somewhere around Cedar Breaks in Utah. That's
Where's the tunnel?
What?
Where's the tunnel?
It's up on where you go through the pass up there. The tunnel is like 11,000 feet.
Oh wow!
I think it's a high spot.
I went out there in the Rabbit GTI, which was fuel injected, and it wouldn't idle at 11,000 feet. I had to keep my foot on the gas.
Yeah.
But, Dale and I went out there. That was the year that we did Bryce Canyon and Zion.
Bill, when we get going good, I'm going to ask you to lean up a little bit because your voice, your vocals are a lot better when you're closer. I mean, not your voice, but the audio.
Yeah. Okay.
Plus, you sound like you're maybe auditioning for the Little Rascals. You're a little froggy this morning.
I tell everybody I sound like Marge Simpson. But, I don't know. I've had people scope me and go up in my nose and all kinds of stuff and speech therapy and whatnot, and they tell me I'm trying to talk without breathing. So I don't know. Maybe if I shout.
Talk without breathing. That's interesting.
Yeah. How can you talk without breathing? Or you got to pass air over those things.
Good morning, Brenda. I see you made it in. Oh, yeah, we got a grand dog this week. We've had a grand dog for a week now. My daughter, Mark. Well,
you said she's at the NFR. Well, she's in Las Vegas.
Well, she's not really at the NFR, but she's in Las Vegas. And that's the first thing I said. Well, hey, if you're in Las Vegas,
go to the rodeo.
Go to Cowboy Chris, buy me something.
I saw that she took a picture of that Josh Frost.
Well, she didn't mean to, but she did.
I mean, it was on a billboard, but
it was on a billboard behind her, and I said, "Look!" to her. No, she's out there field doing some kind of a to do with work, some kind of a real estate seminar or something that she's doing for work, and that's where it was this year. I keep telling Brenda that they're in New Orleans, and she keeps correcting me and saying, no, they're not in New Orleans.
They're in Lost Wages.
They're in Las Vegas.
Lost wages.
And I keep forgetting that. And I haven't heard if they've lost a farm or won any money. I wish they'd hit a big multi-million-dollar jackpot and give their dear old parents, $1 million or so.
Those trips at this time of year down there are boondoggle. We're gonna go training in Las Vegas, whatever, during the NFR.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they knew the NFR was down. I know Jen and Brian didn't know it. Of course, they didn't know it anyway. Oh, no, Phil's not. Phil's been to Arizona, John. He's back now. He lives here. He doesn't live that far from us. As the crow flies, probably 10 miles or so, maybe. And but he has sisters and his parents lived out there for a while. His dad stayed out there, and he's got 2 sisters out there and some other in-laws. And
yeah, there's dad's got a bunch of people out there that went out there following that religious nut back in the 50s, and that's what drew Dad in.
Well, your dad had
emphysema.
Emphysema, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what they used to do, send people to the desert.
Right. Yeah, that's why he went. He said it, made him feel a whole lot better that first time they went out in 75, I think. And then they moved out in June of 76. So
Brenda says that Jennifer is working on her appraisal license. That's what she's supposed to be taking classes every day, and they probably are. John said that he did a 4-day TDY to Davis. I don't know if that's right or if he meant Mountain, when they had the Titan missiles and did a tour of the boneyard. I'm assuming, John, that's the aircraft boneyard out there. I'd like to walk through that sometime.
Yeah, I drove past that, I think, when I went through. It's real close to Tucson, I think. Maybe
it's
not.
just west of Tucson, south of I-10 there.
Yeah, I remember seeing an exit.
Run out there. There's a place on the interstate called Rooster Cogburn.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I've been by there.
It's got a great big ginormous ostrich farm there. Big.
Good morning, Diana. And Ventures by D, Dave, welcome in, buddy. Are you getting rained on? Are you been getting rained on this week like we have? Because we've not seen the sun now in many days. I mean, we see it a little bit today, but it's trifling with us. It's going away.
It's supposed to rain some more today.
Yeah.
We've only had almost 4 inches this month, by the way. I looked yesterday.
I wonder how far behind we were supposed to be. I never heard. Mark said 4 inches.
That's half my annual precept.
Aren't you glad a river runs through your place?
And it's let's see, it's 2 degrees here right now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yay.
Oh, Brenda said they're on a Grand Canyon tour today.
Oh, cool.
Well, I bet they finished up with their training yesterday then. I wonder if she had to take a test.
Uh-oh. We got a big high tide in New Jersey. It's a dry cold. Yeah, buddy.
He's laughing about it, too. I was going to do something. I forgot what I was going to do. Oh, I was waiting for Mike to throw up that. Is that 2 degrees C or 2 degrees Fahrenheit? Oh, it must be Fahrenheit. C would be lower. And I'm betting you're not 2C, because that'd put you up in the high 30s.
Mike says he wished it was 2 degrees where he's
Oh, he wished it was 2.
because
What
he's
is
in
it, Mike?
he's in the polar vortex. They got way cold.
Phantasmic Chronicles. Tony from Ohio, welcome in.
What
Tony
part of
lives-
Ohio?
Yeah, Tony, meet Phil. Phil used to live in Ohio also.
Yeah,
Or did live there.
Akron by birth.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. Oh, Brenda's talking about ocean things to John. Yeah, John, you wouldn't want her to. Could she come up and stay with you guys for a week or so and just pick up seashells? I'm going to have to take that woman down somewhere to the beach so she can seashell hunt. We got slammed with cold weather this week. It was so cold. It was so cold, I won't tell you what was frozen. It would be really inappropriate.
Does
Oh.
it have anything to do with well diggers?
That's what in the Klondike, you know.
Either witches or well diggers.
What province is Mike in?
He won't. It's a secret.
Okay.
But he pulls for. He's a Winnipeg fan.
Oh.
Blue Bombers and airplanes.
Jets.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Jets.
John
Oh wow,
sending
John, that
Brenda
would be amazing.
shark jaws.
We're just getting slammed with. We had cool weather by your standards, Mike, but we've been getting slammed by rain all this week. We hadn't gotten anything. Of course, now parts of the West are getting slammed by snow. Mark, do you guys have any? I don't think you have much compared to others.
A little bit, not much. It's been coming and going. I don't know. We've gotten a few inches this week, but it comes and goes.
What I heard this morning,
It does not melt. It gets beat into a gas form by the wind and sent to Nebraska.
It's not forming glaciers yet.
They call that sublimation. It goes from a solid to a gas. It does not go to a liquid.
and it escapes over to that part of that dry cold effect, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it, like I said, it literally gets blown to Nebraska, and they get it. So.
I heard this morning on the weather that there's some places out there in the Rockies are, I believe they were said 8 to 10 feet of snow.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of snow in the state, but not here.
Yeah, Jackson Hole, I think, has been up that way. They've been getting more, I think.
But they're up we're in the desert, and they're up in the mountains. So
right, makes a big difference.
I mean, I've seen it feet deep here, but
Tony has a pork butt on the smoker now. He likes to smoke meat. And while I've never had any, I've heard good things about it. I don't know if I saw that one yet, Tony, or not. Where did you post that, on Instagram? Oh, now we're talking. So Mike and Tony, wait a minute, guys. That's the kind of thing you can get kicked off my show for, because that's just making me hungry as hell. Mike's going to Tony's. He wants to know what sides to bring.
I got no moose. I got no moose today, Mike. I don't know where they are. I think they're down the willows on the river, all tucked up away from the cold.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that, Tony. I can't figure out the mod chat. I'll have to look into that. I've never been in the mod chat. I'm not, apparently, and I'm persona non grata. Which
Is that where you talk about scooters instead of motorcycles?
I'm thinking not in this case.
Mods versus rockers?
No sides needed. Mike, John's
John's bringing smoked
Whoa.
striper.
That's probably pretty good. Mike, I'm going to take a chance this morning. If you don't mind, which I don't think you would. But before we get started on field strip, and I'm going to go ahead and do this because if I don't, we'll run late. I'm going to show that video that you sent me about the guy building the trucks in Canada because I think it's quite impressive. So bear with, guys. And I'm going to do this. If I can do it right. Where'd it go? There it is. This is in touch with supporting Ukraine here, guys. Can you hear that, Mark?
Yeah, I hear it.
Death and destruction is so close when you're just 30 kilometers from the Russian border. Ukrainian forces reclaimed this region in the northeast, but there's no trophy, just a ravaged landscape, a constant reminder the Russians could return. 9 months into the Russian invasion, Ukrainian soldiers know what they need to quickly get in and out of hot zones. In the early months of the war, the equipment wasn't great. Pickup trucks, SUVs.
Okay, I have to stop this for a second. Did anybody besides me notice that how white the interior of that barrel was on that gun?
Yeah,
Gary?
I saw it.
Reckon that's because it's running lean. I know.
Yeah, he need to add more powder to the next reload.
I'm thinking so, but I've never noticed that before. I don't know why they would do that.
It could be maybe a anti-reflective paint to cool it or something.
It may be. Anyway.
Or a coating.
They captured Russian tanks, but now they have a much better option. A new high-tech armored vehicle named the Senator, which passes the only test that matters here.
Don't know any cases when someone from my friends or Ukrainian soldiers was killed in this car, so it means that it is provide high quality protection for soldiers.
You might be surprised to learn where the Senator was not only designed, but built in a nondescript building in a manufacturing neighborhood near Toronto's Pearson Airport.
It starts here, right? Starts here. That's the first stage, starting from the engineering.
The company is called Rochelle, the brainchild and given name of Roman Shimonov. He started the company 6 years ago, growing it to the point where they're now opening another facility to meet demand. And they've done it by relying on few outside vendors. They start with a stripped-down frame of a Ford F-550 and then build it up from there.
It's important to say that the percentage of the Canadian content in our vehicle is higher than any other vehicle. And the whole process that we're doing here, including the engineering, the R&D, the metal fabrication, milling, machining, turning, sewing, painting, sandblasting, everything is done here in-house.
Extraordinary for any Canadian company, particularly so during a supply chain crisis. But that has allowed Rochelle to increase production tenfold in the last year alone.
So here you can see the vehicles in different stages. Over here you can see how people are grinding that this vehicle will be ready for paint today. Every day, as I mentioned, we need to prepare 2 vehicles. A lot of pressure that you put on yourself. People that we're delivering those vehicles to are under much more pressure than us.
To date, Canada has bought 8 Senators. NATO and European allies have bought at least 90 more that have already been deployed to Ukraine, with over 100 more still to be delivered. The Senator was designed to protect its occupants. That's fairly obvious. Still, we brought its armored plating and reinforced glass to a gun range to test them out.
So this would be the SKS.
This is the more common round that the forces in Ukraine would be facing. There we go.
Ever seen one of those, Phil?
And the metal
Yep.
holds up nicely. The 7.62 millimeter rounds did
That's
as well as
flat.
expected. That hasn't done a thing. That hasn't done any damage. But we were less sure about the glass because nothing is completely bulletproof. So the 223, the SKS, and the handgun doesn't look like it went through, and it didn't. All it did was spiderweb and shatter. The glass did its job really well. Yeah, that's actually smooth. You don't even get a glass shard from that. Shimonov is constantly taking input from the Ukrainian military, refining the engineering and design down to the smallest detail to improve the senator's performance in a war zone. It's an intimidating vehicle. Was it designed that way?
I guess so. You don't want your vehicle to look like a vehicle for clowns. You want an intimidating.
Clowns.
It's not just about the metal. Another vital aspect for Ukrainians, technology that allows the soldiers inside the vehicle to identify the direction and caliber of bullets being fired at them. There's something
Wow,
empowering
caliber
about
bullets.
driving this. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's empowering even more when you have an armored vehicle in a danger zone. Soldiers, they get an armored vehicle. Imagine what it does for them.
They aren't designed to be combat vehicles, but the Ukrainian military uses Senators for everything, from medical evacuations and prisoner swaps to shock assaults. And they have been hit. Just moments after Russian missiles landed a meter away, this video shows the Senator's ballistic glass and steel held up. The Ukrainian military reported no injuries. That sort of feedback has prompted Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to ask Canada for more armored vehicles. Canada does have some capability in this area. Ottawa also bought 39 light armored vehicles made in London, Ontario by military defense giant General Dynamics. Those are en route to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Rochelle can make and deliver a senator to the Ukraine military in a month. It's enough for Defense Minister Anita Anand to suggest Canada is perfectly positioned to be a major player.
I've asked my colleagues across the NATO alliance to think about Canada as a leader in this area, because what we are providing to Ukraine are brand new vehicles, fresh off the line, to make sure that Ukraine has best-in-class technology.
If Canada wants to help Ukraine on the scale it's asking for, the industry needs a lot more support, says procurement expert David Perry.
Ukrainians are basically looking to get their hands on as absolute much equipment as they can. There's definitely the potential here, but if you were to assume that that was, say, several thousand vehicles, I don't think that there's many companies in the world that can basically just snap their fingers and start tooling out that number of vehicles in only a few months' time.
But Rochelle isn't waiting for the government to step in. They're projecting to make another 1,000 armored vehicles in 2023. And to do that, the company has a secret weapon.
You can see a lot of Ukrainian refugees.
This section of the Rochelle plant is what makes the operation unique. When Shimonov needed experienced welders, he tapped into his Ukrainian connections to find employees who desperately wanted to contribute to the war effort. Shimonov says in total, Rochelle has hired at least 30 newcomers from Ukraine since the war began. And that number keeps growing.
I have one guy that worked 20 people. That's true. Like sometimes we, the management, we stand and we gaze and we don't understand how one person can do so much.
That person is a barrel-chested man named Volodymyr. And don't let the smile fool you. He's got an iron grip. But he says that truly strong people are the warriors, the heroes. They are fighting and defending the homeland. We're helping as much as we can, but we're not as strong as they are. Shimonov has personal motivation to help as much as he can too. His wife is Ukrainian, and he's also an immigrant. He grew up in Israel, and like all Israelis, served in the military. And then a decade ago, he sought a fresh start in the West. Canada, he says, was an easy choice.
And that's no question, no doubt that Canada is one of the best places to raise your kids and to run a business.
The extremely focused Shimonov had his first big success in the armored car industry. Far too many robberies of cash transporting vehicles are inside jobs, so he developed technology that removes control from any one person.
And with this system, we're basically able to control the vehicle remotely in an encrypted way.
How many of your armored vehicles have been robbed?
Zero.
Not like 1%?
Zero. 0.0%. None of our vehicles were robbed.
Cash transport giant Garda World has bought hundreds of Rochelle armored vehicles since 2020, with plans to eventually replace its entire North American fleet. If the success of its armored cash cars is Rochelle's lifeblood, the senator has become its heart.
When you see the occupied city and you see all of the people are coming from the buildings and they put the Ukrainian flag, and you see that those soldiers are standing on your vehicle, that's something that, it's way beyond just making money.
And that's saying something, given that last year, Rochelle topped more than $100 million in revenue in only its fifth year. Among their clients, NASA, the U.S. State Department, various security agencies in the U.S., and Western allies. Shimonov insists Rochelle doesn't sell to individuals or rogue nations. As Rochelle churns out senators at breakneck pace, now this production line is music to the ears of Ukrainian soldiers.
To all Canadian people who support Ukraine, please keep doing it further, because we really need to be ourselves, the Ukrainians, not to be part of Russia. Thank you very much.
It seems the only person who's not a fan is a certain president. The Russians must not like you, though.
Yeah, they don't like me and they don't like my colleagues and my company.
Shimonov found out this summer he's been blacklisted by Vladimir Putin, something he sees as a badge of honor.
For us, it's the best recognition that we could get. And I opened a bottle of champagne the day when I read that I'm in sanction list. I have another bottle for the day when Putin will be gone.
For the day Putin will be gone. All right, guys. I just thought that was really cool. Like that whole thing. He's got Ukrainian workers.
What would be really cool is if they've made those things out of captured Russian stuff melted down for scrap.
Yeah, that's true. That would be. There's probably plenty of it over there if they could get it scrapped out and melted down and brought over here or something. That'd be great. But Mike, I have to thank Mike Cabral for sending that to me. He sent that. He probably sent it to me a week ago, but for some reason I just got a lot of my text messages or not DMs on Instagram in the last couple of days that were given last week, or he might have sent that to my phone. So either way, I thought that was a really cool story. I wanted to share that before we got into our other main topic. And I just thought that was really cool. I may have to write that guy a letter and, tell him he's going to do a damn good job. Oh, Mike says he's been in one of those senators. We have them on the gang unit. A little secret divulged there by Mike.
Maybe we're finding out now.
Yeah, maybe. But how do they, Mike, have you driven it? I mean, how do they drive? I should bring you on live too. I'll have to bring you on someday. Well, you can't talk about some of it, but just next time you're on, I may have to try to remember to ask you that. But they look heavy, but it looked like when that guy was driving it, it would be I don't know. It just looked like it'd be fun. I don't think you're worried about what anybody else is doing, because I think you might take on anything else on the road, looked to me like. Okay, let me get Phil's. I'm going to run a few slides today, not a huge amount. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of conversation in the middle. There's a lot of room in this show, and I wish Tina was here today. I think there's going to be a lot of room for squirrel chasing in a lot of states today. So we'll see how that part goes. I'm getting it set up right now. Hey, Boudreaux. Hi, buddy.
I
Oh,
didn't
man.
bring a dog.
That's Phil. That dog is part Dachshund and part Border Collie. He's his Border Collie in him, makes him want to herd the horses. The Dachshund in him lets him be low enough to the ground that they can't hardly hit him. I'm kidding, Mark. I'm just making a joke.
And he's fast.
Yeah, that's got your airstream and you're close to the
He
ground.
keeps up with the real Border Collies, so he's quick.
He probably thinks he is one.
Well, he is half breed.
Well, true. Okay, guys, here we go. Phil has recently gone to Wyoming, Arizona, and spent a month out there actually with his sister or his family, two sisters. And so I just thought I'd ask him to come on today and show a few of his pictures. We're not going to overload anybody with them or anything. And Mike says, I like the part in the video how Canada is stepping up for the times in world need to help other countries and assist. I do too, Mike. I think that's a good lick, and that looks like an amazing vehicle to me. I'm thinking they've taken a lot of stuff that might have been wrong in other vehicles or found to work, and they're really using real time data from soldiers to figure out what it needs and make it as good as they can. So I thought that was quite interesting. And if you notice, when a couple of those drove by when they were from above, it looks to me like while they say they're not technically a battle vehicle, and it looks to me like they're set up to put like machine guns on top or something so they could operate as somewhat of an assault vehicle.
I'd call it an armored personnel carrier.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They would have been handy in the sandbox.
They would have. And I've seen some vehicles that look similar to that over here being used for different things. Sometimes you see something very similar to that around here on the news when the cops actually have some of those for riot vehicles and whatnot. And they look similar, but I don't know who made those. Well, and before I forget it, what's a Ford 550? Is that a 2-ton truck? Anybody know? Because a 250 is a 3/4 ton. A 350 is a 1-ton chassis and truck by Ford standards. A 550, that's a big truck. I don't know what. I've never heard of a 550. That could be a Canadian designation. I don't know, but I've just never seen or heard of a 550. I'm gonna have to look that up. I haven't done that yet, but it's a 5-ton. It's a 5-ton. Oh wow. Well, that would make sense because they are putting a lot of weight on it. But I wonder what engines they have in them. I wonder if they've got those big
ones.
They probably got diesels in them actually, because considering that they're military, or maybe a multi-fuel engine even. If they still do that. Okay, I'm getting already chasing a squirrel. Let's get this show on the road, literally. Tim, remember what you're doing here. Share screen. Select screen. Share. There we go. We're starting off. And I don't know if Phil saw this or not, but I just wanted to put a little, typical something you might see in a welcome station out there, or a postcard you might get from, hey, actually that says greetings from Arizona. But I like this one a little bit because while it's not a real map per se, it has some interesting features on it, like their flag, their state bird, which is a cactus wren. that's a waterfowl, and I'm not sure what's up there unless that's where they've dammed the Colorado up, because that's the area of the Grand Canyon. There is some kind of a wetland up in there. I don't know, Mark. Do you remember? That's not Bosco?
No, that's in New Mexico.
Is that the only one that's got that forename?
The Bosque?
Bosque, yeah.
The Bosque del Apache, that's in New Mexico.
Yeah,
That's
I know
not-
that is. I wonder if there's a Bosque something else over there.
I don't know. I don't know of any wetlands up there other than the Colorado River.
Well, anyway, I stuck that in there for kind of a general idea, but just mostly that's just as an eye catch. That's a clickbait because I knew people can't resist going to see what are they talking about Arizona. That's cool.
Looks like a scaled quail on there, maybe. I don't know. It's little. I can't see it very well.
This up here at the top is a duck.
Yeah, I see a mallard there, but there, right below your cursor, there's a bird.
Yeah, that might be a scaled quail. It's really not. It's not very accurate, I don't think. And I'm guessing it says the Legend of Arizona's Camels. Now, are they talking about some that the military released, or are they talking about prehistoric camels? I wonder.
I don't know there. I know the Army had a camel thing going on in Texas, but I didn't know about it in Arizona.
And there's, of course,
They released them there north of Las Cruces on that Jornada del Muerto, up north between Las Cruces and like Elephant Butte Reservoir, heading north towards Albuquerque. They had camels there, and I think they might have had some camels out there in that Cabeza Prieta country, southwest of Phoenix, but I'm not sure.
Mike, I'll back up a second. Mike said he thinks that's got the Duramax diesel in it. That makes sense. Well, anyway, Phoenix, I can see it over here better. I was looking on the little map, and Phoenix, of course, is down here, and Phil was more up this way towards Flagstaff and a little further up.
About halfway between.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there's Prescott right there. And a couple of pictures will give you a general idea of that. Well, maybe. Anyway, that's the first photo or first image. And as usual, I'd like for you to consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And, if you don't mind, and leave a comment if you don't mind. Apparently YouTube likes that. So here's a more of a real map. And I put on the lines of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, I've got where in the world is Petey. Petey is what we used to call Phil a lot at work. And I think Mark, we even called him that around you some, because I think I've heard your dad call him Petey.
Yeah, that's.
Of course, Arizona's nickname for Arizona is the Grand Canyon State, and that makes sense because one of the many major wonders of the world, if you will, the Grand Canyon is a big part of the northern part of Arizona, and so many amazing things up there, and then we've got they became a state in 1912. They were the 48th state. So they were the last state to come in. I didn't realize that. They were the last state to come in before Alaska and Canada. Or not. Sorry, Mike. Alaska and Hawaii. There, Mike, I annexed you, buddy. Sorry. I didn't mean that. I honestly don't think of it that way. I just got it mixed up on my tongue there. There were about 7 million people there the last time they checked. I about bet that goes up. That's a major snowbird / retirement area now, or has been. But it's No, I won't say that. That's political. Never mind. Phoenix
They've
is,
sure buggered up a lot of fine country. That's all I know.
yeah, they have, and drained a lot of water too out of the everything
Yeah.
they can find.
That's
St.
that's
Clair,
wh-
go
that's
ahead.
why I never moved out there. I thought the water was going to run out.
Well,
43 years
still
later,
will,
it's still
probably.
water. But you know, it is quite a bit lower than it was.
Well, you guys didn't I don't know if they still do, but I know your mom and dad, they had to haul water, didn't they? Or get water brought in?
No, mom and dad drilled a well.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
he ran. They didn't have any power, so Dad bought that blowed up hospital generator, and he would pump water once a week into their water tank. So, I think he had to
Well,
go
I
up
had
550 feet to get water.
John's laughing.
I had a friend that was like 6th generation Arizonan, maybe 7 generations. His family been there forever, and he always used to say, "Flush twice, then these sons of bucks will have to leave the state."
So he could probably be buried in the Arizona Pioneer Graveyard up there in Prescott. Then they've got a Pioneer Graveyard up there.
Now, Mark lived in Arizona for a couple of years, right?
Out there southeast of Prescott.
Yeah, you moved up this way to get out of the Phoenix area, as I recall.
Yeah, we lived on the north edge of they call it the valley where Phoenix is. We were out kind of in the country away from town, but I mean, they were real close, within 25 miles or so. And
What was that, Anthem or New River?
And then I lived out there east of Anthem over on the forest boundary.
Okay.
And when I moved to Arizona, I was there almost 5 years. And when
Were you there that long?
Oh,
Okay.
when I moved there wasn't no Anthem. We hunted quail right there where they built Anthem. And then all of a sudden, Anthem just like popped up out of the desert like a daisy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all my trips out there, I've slowly watched that stuff creep north.
Yeah.
Every time I'd go out there, it's like, well, town is now 10 miles further out than it was.
Yeah, and their public land, a lot of their public lands in that state belong to the state, not to the federal government.
I wonder how they worked that out.
And so they sold that ground all the time, and they just built a whole nother town out there. And it's like, and they all look just exactly alike. And
Yes, they do.
And that's going to let me make a political statement of sorts right now. That's why it's so scary when all those states out there want to take over all the national federally owned land and make it state land, because that's exactly what will happen to it.
Oh, guaranteed.
Because it's worth more to them, because the first thing that happens is they cry poor mouth after they want it, but then once they get it, they start yelling that they can't afford to keep it all, so they start selling some of it off, and it all just goes little by little, further and further, until there's nothing left. And I know Wyoming has been singing that song for a long time, and New Mexico has had some issues with that. I think the Gray Ranch could have been like that, except it was wanted to be, I guess, I think it's still a preserve, isn't it?
Well, they sold that property to the Nature Conservancy.
Right.
I don't know if they still own it or not. There was a gentleman down there that was buying up that whole part of the country.
I was thinking the Bush guy might have bought it, but he bought it and
He did.
He paid the debt on it, basically, and I thought he was still running it or letting them run it the way they were.
Yeah, and he bought, interesting guy. He bought that Vlad Pendleton's place down there. The guy that was kind of my neighbor to the north. And he might have bought Cowan's, and he bought up a bunch of that country. I already owned Guadalupe Canyon, and so One
Well,
big
anyway,
guy.
that's the kind of thing that happens when all the public land gets sold. Now, what I wonder, and I should read up on this, I guess, is how all the land in Arizona became state. I mean, was it never public or federal?
I don't know.
'Cause
You know, they got a big band of checkerboard lands, just kind of like we've got checkerboard BLM lands. They've got checkerboard lands in the north half of the state that are
right.
along kind of the I-40 corridor but they're state lands. They're not BLM lands or Forest Service lands.
So somehow they got theirs. They got a hold of theirs before people wanted it to realize what was going on. Maybe, I don't know, but it's unusual for that to be the case. Usually that checkerboard land out in west, folks, if you don't understand that term, basically the way that worked is the federal government gave the railroads certain sections of land, and it was always
Every other section.
Yeah, it was mixed in with
30 miles.
which could, at that time, I guess it was land that could be the public land was land that could be homesteaded, but was sometimes and wasn't sometimes, and a lot of it stayed public and management lands and Forest Service lands, but it was you always had, and Mark's done this, you had to deal with that railroad land in between, which is private land, most of some sort. I don't know who all owns it now. A lot of it's probably individuals, but it makes management of wildlife habitat challenging, to say the least.
Your squirrel monitor has arrived.
I see that. Welcome in, Tina. You're not late. You missed one or two squirrels there at the beginning. I tell you what we'll do. We'll own up and be honorable and say there's two. We're already at two. How about that? That way I might still not be telling the complete truth, but I'm not lying either. Totally. Did you see where Carol had welcomed? I put that up there. Carol welcomed Mike and Diana into the United States. She, welcome to America. I can't apologize enough, guys. I'll have to send you a present or something to make up for that. I do apologize. Okay, Tina's gonna spot us too. So anyway, that's Arizona. And before I forget it, Mark, Phil had a question to you about how much of that country you got to explore while you lived out there. Did you have time to get out and really look around and, flip rocks and that kind of stuff?
I wandered as much as I possibly could, Phil. I wandered a lot, and I had statewide jurisdiction, so I worked over most of the state, and I spent a lot of time out chasing herps at night and doing whatever, chasing quail during the daytime or javelinas. Or I didn't spend as much time up in the northeastern part of the state, on the Navajo reservation. I didn't spend a lot of time up there, but did have an old gentleman call us one day. I was the mountain lion biologist and had an old gentleman out there on the reservation that said he had a lion killing his goats. So we went up to see what we could do to help him out, and he had somebody had dumped out an actual lion with a mane on it. What? It wasn't a mountain lion. It was an African lion. Yeah.
But that lion thought this almost looks like home.
And he was killing goats, and
I bet he was
living high on the hog. And then up, we had that. If you went up towards Page up there north of Flagstaff, and you'd turn to the west and go toward the Kaibab Plateau, there was a valley up there, the House Rock Valley, and there was a big pond up there. And we had to take about a 12-foot alligator out of that pond. I don't know how long he'd been there.
How much? A 12-foot alligator?
About 12 feet long. Yeah.
Jiminy Christmas.
He was really, I don't know how old that thing was. It was, he was stunted, of course, from living in that, because that country's pretty high and gets pretty cold in the wintertime.
Oh, yeah.
And, but that pond was big enough and deep enough that he could survive that. And I guess he was just eating deer or whatever when they came down to water.
Well, that was a surprise.
Yeah, buddy.
Adaptation.
And Tina asked how it got there, and it got there because some idiot, some human being released it there.
I wonder how big it was. I'd like to know how big.
And it might have been a big one when they put it in there. Who knows?
Yeah, possible. Tina, it's kind of the old alligator in the New York City sewer situation, except this is in real life. Every once in a while they find one up this way, but they found one in the Tennessee River a few years ago, but I'm not sure how far up it was. Of course, that's also part of the warming climate, and the alligators moving further north. We'll probably have lots of them here before too many years are over. We got lots of armadillos now, so why not?
Well, and Arizona had really loose wildlife laws on what you could possess legally.
Yeah.
And people were moving into Arizona from all over the country, and they bring their whatever pet creature with them. And we ended up with a lot of weird stuff.
Hang on, guys. I don't know what I did there. I took the screen down, didn't I?
Yeah, it's just you right now.
Yeah, and I think I took you. Oh, nope. Okay, now I got you back in there. Sorry. I accidentally hit a key. I was trying to say thanks, Tony, and I hit my dyslexic finger. Hit something that kicked you guys plumb out.
So your people lived in Chino Valley?
Yes.
Well,
yeah. Dad bought 20 acres in a box canyon up there back in the late 70s. And then he subdivided it and, gave us all two acre parcels. And my little sister and my older sister built houses back there along with Dad and Mom. And me and my sister that lives in Kentucky and my half sister in Indiana had no intent in coming out. And I gave my property to my sister's daughter, and they built a house on that. So I think my piece of property was the only one back there that had a good shot of seeing the peaks and Flagstaff through the gap.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a nice view.
That made me think of something, and now I forgot it again. So never mind. Anyway, it's an interesting piece of country. It's different than New Mexico. Correct me if I'm wrong. In New Mexico, I've always thought New Mexico was a wonderful state because it had so many different mini ecosystems in it. It had the southwest deserty part, it had that middle desert mountainy part kind of, and then you get up north and it's western mountains. It was always so cool. There's so many different critters than we have here. And
that valley is a great big grassland looking thing, and there's a lot of antelope running on it. Besides, people trying to run cattle there.
Well, that was one of the neat things about the Gray Ranch where Mark was doing his projects down there. That was one reason that was so important was because it was also a grassland kind of in the middle of the desert, and that's where originally they used it to, gather cattle up to be sent up back east on trains or something, or herded up together. Anyway, they fattened them up down there on grass, and it was a multi-owner kind of thing, wasn't it, Mark, when it first started?
I think so.
That's what I recall, but I wanted to welcome in Dave before I forget it. Hope you're having a good day, Dave. Hope you guys probably having some decent weather since you're in Florida. Okay, and they were in the Chino Valley, like he was just saying. Anything else you'd like to say about that?
No, not really. It's just,
Okay.
I've through various and sundry visits over the last 40 years, I've sat there and watched it grow. It's taken up more and more of the valley, people selling out and building houses and stuff and selling off ranch land and that kind of stuff. So it's well, you'll see on one of those pictures there how full the valley is, full of houses and stuff. So it's a pretty place. I like visiting there. I don't know that I would want to live there. It's a little too red for me.
The Dave, I know several people have been kind of keeping up with your situation. I hope we're all kind of thinking about you there. I hope things take a turn for the better soon. I don't know exactly what you're anticipating, but I hope that works out. Okay, moving along. I'll skip over to the next one, which should have one of Phil's pictures in it. This wasn't his first picture, he said, but it was kind of the first one I wanted to show, or he wanted to show. We had it put in there because it was just a beautiful sun. It was just getting up in the fog in the valley early in the morning was just a really cool picture. And that's in Oklahoma, I believe you said, Phil.
No, yeah, it's on the Oklahoma side of the Wichita Mountains, and
Okay.
looking south. And I was in really dense fog, and then I broke out of the fog cover and into this intense blue sky and the cloud deck below in the valley, which just really looks cool. And it was super windy and cold up there. But that's a national scenic route, the Wichita Mountains there from Mena, Arkansas over to Tala something, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I'll have to look that one up. Sorry. But anyway, that's one of the things that I wanted to hit on my motorcycle tour with Jim earlier in September. And we didn't have enough time to do the Ozarks and drop down here and hit this. So I wanted to scope it out since I was going out west. So I went there. I camped one night up on the mountain. It was pretty cool.
And that Mark, you asked him if he went out there to Arizona on his motorcycle. No, but he did take a trip from here to Arkansas this summer on his motorcycle. Him and his buddy Jim Bailey.
Yeah.
And they toured.
We did a week in the Ozarks, all across the top of the state, and dropping down almost to we did drop down to Dardanelle Reservoir there, and I'm sure you remember that from your time going to school in Arkansas there, Mark.
Oh, he lived right beside.
I lived right beside the reservoir. I had a canoe stash behind the house in a little drainage, and I could go down there to the Lake Dardanelle all the time. We fed ourselves out of that lake mostly. And I was I could look across the lake. I was on the north side of the lake, and I could look across and see Maddie Ross over there at Dardanelle, Yell County.
Were you in Russellville or close?
We lived in a little town called London, just west of Russellville.
School was in Russellville, though, wasn't it?
School was in Russellville, and
okay.
we lived about, I don't know, 5 or 10 miles west of Russellville.
Yeah, we passed right through Russellville and crossed the river in order to go up Magazine Mountain on one of our tour days.
So you went to Dardanelle?
Yeah. I actually stopped at the Lock and Dam there and went through a little museum there that the Corps of Engineers had.
Did they have big old ginormous catfish heads nailed to the walls?
Well, they had all kinds of critters in there, but I don't remember any ginormous catfish.
Well, they would catch those 110, 120 pound blue cats there below that dam. And
That's a big
you know, a lot of those old guys that you'd go down there, we'd go down there and fish for white bass below the dam, and there'd be a bunch of old codgers sitting on the bank with saltwater reels and rods. And they'd throw like a whole chicken out there on the bottom and just sit there.
That's wild.
They caught some big old ginormous fish out of that country.
What road did you say you went into Oklahoma on to get you to that campground or wherever you were at? Or
It's Arkansas Route 188, I believe. It goes from Mena through. There's a U.S. route above there, but that follows the valley. I went across the ridge, which was Arkansas 188, I believe, and it's called the Talamina Scenic Highway.
Well, there's a town there called Tallahena.
That's the other end of it. Okay.
I got my atlas out today so I can follow.
Yeah, I didn't get quite to Tallahena. I might have.
So
Anyway,
that's in the
Washita.
Washita.
U.S. route.
Yeah, it's still in the Washita area. Some of it is anyway.
Yeah, Mena's in the Washitas.
Yeah, that's in the foothills on the Arkansas side.
Right.
Mark, before we leave the subject of Lake Dardanelle and that area and Mattie Ross, did you ever have any difficulties or hazards in the path when you went down to get your canoe and paddle down to the lake?
Did we have any difficulties?
Well, hazards to step
Well,
over.
yeah, there was a bazillion hazards crawling all over the ground. That's the snakiest place I've ever been in my life.
See, now I hear that from a lot of people, but when I hear it from Mark Zorns, I believe it.
So you
don't make that up.
You remember there was a causeway, the railroad causeway there behind the house in that bay that was rip-wrapped, and you could go down there in the wintertime and you could find thousands of cottonmouths.
That was the cottonmouthiest place I have ever seen in my life. You guys found them up in the mountains you found them everywhere.
Yeah, they were everywhere. And lots of copperheads and rattlesnakes too. But
you know, an interesting thing about riprap while I'm on this, well, you mentioned it, the squirrel. But when I was with TVA, we tried to get people to maintain natural habitat on their shoreline. That was a big push for us to try to keep them as natural as we could. And if you got good habitat, vegetation and stuff on your shoreline, it holds better. And but you couldn't get people to do that because the first thing they yelled was, "It's snaky, it's snaky." It's too snaky out there. But as soon as you put in riprap, it becomes a haven for snakes of all sorts. And that's what they wanted to do, was riprap the shoreline. And the first thing that happens is mice and other critters move in there amongst those rocks to live above the waterline, of course. And then the next thing that moves in there are the Mr. No Shoulders, who's in there looking for a breakfast or a nighttime snack, and then they actually were creating more snake habitat than they were cutting down. That's okay, Tina. I fully accept that as a 3.
You got Wichita spelled wrong there on your card.
Oh, I sure do.
It's OU. OU Wichita.
Okay, that's right. It is. Oh, well. And Mark's not back. Oh, there's the truck. Okay, we can start talking about the truck. This is Phil's camping vehicle. So, Phil, if you'd like to tell them what you camped in while you're around.
Yeah, that's my 2010 Ford Ranger XL, which is basically a no frills truck with just a radio and air conditioning in it. A little 4-cylinder, 5-speed manual transmission, 6-foot bed. when I bought it, I put this ARE camper top on it because I wanted to do just this, to camp out of it. And it took a while, with working all the time and never having time to do anything like that. And now that I'm retired, I finally decided to try it out as a camping rig. And I'm short enough to where I can sleep in there with the tailgate up, and all I got to do is put a blanket in there to keep the tailgate from heat soaking my body. Tim and I talked about that last night. That tailgate's a great heat sink when you put your feet on it.
I slept in my truck a few times, and that's one of the first things. That's something I learned after in sleeping in really cold weather, was when your feet are down by that tailgate, you wake up cold, buddy, because that tailgate just sucks all the heat right out of your body. It's amazing. The rest of me might be comfortable and warm, and my feet would be like 2 blocks of ice. I mean, I thought, wow. And people were saying, I bet you, and other guys told me, they said, I bet you froze to death in that truck last night. And I said, well, didn't you guys freeze to death in your tents? And they said, no, we were okay. So I learned that lesson. What's the book, Bill? Do you know?
What's what?
That back on that book looks familiar, but what is the book?
Oh, that's the book I was talking to you about last night. Barbara Kingsolver's latest novel, Demon Call.
Oh, okay. Damn, that's a real book now. Look at that thing.
Yeah, it was. I'm going to say almost 400 pages.
I see you took some Barney Kroger bread with you out there.
Yeah. I was eating hummus sandwiches with English cucumber and green peppers on them until the raccoons relieved me of that in Possum Kingdom.
Possum Kingdom. That's a Texas.
Yeah. It's Raccoon Kingdom.
That was in Texas.
Yes, it's just south of Graham, Texas, on the Brazos River.
Right on the Brazos.
Yeah, and I camped there the second night after that was the third night. I camped there after the Wichita Mountain thing, and left my cooler out on the picnic table because it wasn't bear habitat, but it was raccoon habitat, and they know how to open a lid on a cooler, no problem. I heard them in there messing around, and I threw a light on them. Here's that thing, holding the lid up and looking around, trying to dig something else out. And they had already gotten my turkey chili out of there and had that on the ground. And then a skunk showed up and ran them off and ate all the chili. So the raccoons got scammed out of their own little deal there. So hooray for the skunk.
Mark, that's a great cartoon. I can see that now. A raccoon holding the lid open on the cooler, sorting through and yelling back behind him. Well, we got some ham. We got some sliced turkey. Here's a bowl of chili. And down here looks like we got some vegetables and some olive,
Well, and all those critters like that, like ringtails in Arizona.
He's had those to get in his stuff.
Yeah, ringtails.
Those ringtails get the Kelty backpack magazines and figure out how to open all the backpacks.
Yeah, I had a Kelty backpack on my trip to the bottom of the canyon, and a ringtail relieved me of my trail mix.
They just like unzip the zipper and get in there and.
Well, look here, I had to address this. What Mike said. Mike said he has slept in his vehicle plenty of times, but it wasn't by choice. And that's probably a lot funnier to us than it is to Mike.
Either that or it's a homeless story.
It's either he's stranded at work story maybe, or his wife kicked him out. So I don't know. Somebody asked him if Tina or Brenda or somebody want to know if Diana kicked him out. And I don't see an answer to that. I don't see an answer to that yet. Other than a laugh. Mike's got a laughing face down here, so maybe. Here's the clue to that, Mike, where your clothes sitting on the front porch in a Food City bag. That's what we used to go by. That's what a friend of mine, he'd come into work and we'd find out he was sleeping in his car or somebody else's house, and he'd say, I got home and all my clothes were in my Food City shopping bag, so I knew it was time to go.
That wasn't Booker, was it?
No, that was Tommy Lee.
Oh,
You
okay.
didn't know Tommy
Yeah.
Lee, but you
No,
didn't mean
I've
you've
heard a lot
heard
of Tommy
stories
Lee
though.
stories though.
Yeah, he worked with Vernon and them for years, and then I worked with him 3 years or so. I was up in the Tri-Cities. He was a character. He was I'll have to tell tales about him sometime when the camera ain't on, or when we're not on the interwebs anyway. So anyhow, he went through most of that. That's a nice Nemo sleeping bag he's got there, and cushions. Look like those cushions came off your couch.
Now that cushion rig is a fold up chair sort of a thing. If you can see at the front of the bed there's a
Oh,
blade
yeah.
sticking up. If you fold this thing up, it looks like a real low chair. You fold it out, and that little hump, made a nice pillow, so I didn't have to bring a camp pillow. I had it elevated my head there, so that worked out real nice. And then that blue blanket is one of those things you get for free when you take a trip to the hospital in a paddy wagon.
Oh, yeah, which he knows about.
Well, yeah, and plus Mom did it 3 or 4 times, so I think I've got about 6 of those blankets. But yeah, that was my piece of insulation between the tailgate and my feet.
So did you buy that for this purpose, or did you discover it?
No, that was a gift from Roy Christopher. I'm sure you remember Roy.
Yeah.
From FFV days, and he came over here to work with me at Standard Aero later, and I gave him an old couch that I had when he was setting up housekeeping, and he gave me that in exchange for it, and I've just been sitting on it ever since, because I thought, that might come in handy in the back of the truck. So
looks like it's perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's about 4 inches or so thick, so it was great. And I think it's 24 inches wide. So just right.
That's probably a good idea, Mike, as long as you don't freeze to death doing it.
That sounds like my buddy
Go ahead,
Charlie,
Bill.
after he got his first DUI, he started carrying a sleeping bag in his car.
Well, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, he just crashed instead of trying to drive home.
I never thought about that. Tina says, so what you're really saying, Diana, is that he doesn't have the option to sleep in his truck. It's too comfortable. So she kicks him out into the doghouse. And he's got company there, Diana. He's got basset hounds to keep him warm. Do you see that, Mark? Talking about Mike over there. And Diana said when she kicks him out, he's got to sleep in the doghouse. And Tina wanted to know if that's because it was less comfortable than the truck. I love it. Okay, next picture. See, I knew there'd be squirrel chasing in this. Oops, wrong way. Now, how'd that happen?
No, you're right.
Okay.
That's sunrise in Lake Brantley State Park in New Mexico, just north of Carlsbad. That's kind of looking. The sun just peeked over the horizon, but before the sun came up, you could see all the gas being flared off in the Permian Basin over there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They're fracking the living crap out of that area again now that, fracking's been discovered, because that was kind of played out for petroleum extraction. And then fracking came along, and man, it looks like the surface of the moon over there now. lots of holes, lots of rigs, lots of pump jacks, and then a lot of towers flaring off methane.
I'm surprised they're letting any of that methane go anymore since they can sell. Well, I guess they don't really sell the methane though. They sell natural gas. I guess is different than pure methane. I don't know. I get that confused. I mean, methane's a natural gas too, but
Yeah, that's the lightest version of it.
well, anyway, that Mark, I got a question. You worked with these guys a whole lot more than I do. This was Bureau of Reclamation land. How do they fit in with the other bunch out there?
BLM.
BLM? Do that? Yeah, I was starting to say that, and I kept thinking that ain't right. Yeah, I mean, do they work with the BLM at all, or are they just another entity to fight against one another? Or
They're just another, federal agency. They're kind of like the BLM and the Forest Service, different,
but they're still separate.
But these guys are tied to water bodies.
Right, I know they build dams, or they used to anyway.
Yeah, they operate and they build and operate dams and work on, they might have a fair amount of land along a water body. Like there's a bunch of Bureau of Rec lands over here on the Green River just east of me. And they're always squabbling over who. The Bureau of Rec kind of slowing down their operations over there, and they're kind of wanting out of some of that. And the BLM is squabbling over that land, and the Fish and Wildlife Service is squabbling over that land. And of course, the local ranchers want it all back. And it gets to be, interagency rivalries appear to be the norm.
See, and that's a case where it would seem to me like could possibly be beneficial if the state had control of that because of the waterway and the land around it. I don't know what it looks like, but down here,
I'm afraid they'd build houses on all of it, and there you'd be.
Well, that's the problem.
This one was on the Pecos River, by the way.
Yeah, right on the Pecos.
Yeah, I looked this up in Wikipedia this morning, and this dam went in. It actually replaced an unsafe dam back in the early 1980s. It's when the Bureau of Reclamation built this dam. And then I was just happened to think that since you was talking about that, Tim, was McPhee's book about the Arch Druid thing. Floyd Dominy was the head of the Bureau of Reclamation, and all they wanted to do was dam up the whole West, more or less.
Yeah, and that's turned out to not be the greatest thing they could have done. They figured out that they almost have more evapotranspiration kind of thing, or whatever it is, evaporating water out of those reservoirs than they ever lost, when it was still rivers. And the numbers are amazing. So, I mean, not that the water doesn't do a lot of good to those cities and stuff out there, but they about reached their limits. And if you look out there right now, they're hurting. I don't know what it looks like today, but back during the summer, I mean, Lake Mead and stuff was heading down fast.
It's only, Lake Mead is only like 30 feet above minimum pool to where they can't generate. That's how low it's getting.
That's pretty low. That's damn near the river channel is what that is.
Well, and that's all, the Colorado system, and the green up here is like the headwaters of the Colorado.
Yeah.
One of the tributaries to the Colorado. And we got people from eastern Colorado, from like Denver, that are wanting our water here.
Mm-hmm.
And take it clear out of this basin and put it over in that basin.
Yeah. We've had some of those fights, believe it or not.
They've got enough people.
Go ahead.
I think that's what he was agreeing. Go ahead, Phil. Tell him what you were
No, I
saying.
was going to say Georgia was trying to get the state line redrawn so they could tap into the Tennessee River at Chattanooga. They were going back that far, saying, "Oh well, they screwed up the survey when they did this state line, and we're entitled to that water, and they want to suck it down to Atlanta and stuff." And so they've been. I don't know how big that fight is, but I haven't heard anything about it lately. But
Well, we used to hear about it working for TVA. We used to hear about it from time to time when it really wasn't on the news. And I don't know where it is today, but they were pretty seriously trying to get a hold of it. I mean, and that's an example of they were just flat out grew their water system down there, which is happening in the West. And they've reached a critical point. They either need to move some. They ain't quit. It's a for a city, it's a catch-22 because you want your city built up and be profitable and have people there, and I don't know, bring in tax dollars and revenue for all kinds. I mean, it's just, and it's a never-ending cycle. And then, but at the same time, you get to a point where you've maxed out, and you really need to stop that and slow it down. But you can't let go of that rush for the building and the money and all that. So they keep going there, and they've just outgrown the water supply, and so they're trying.
And so much of it's just wasteful use of water. I mean,
Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
golf courses and swimming pools, and I mean, it's ridiculous.
exactly.
Of course,
Yeah,
back
look at
here
an
we
area
never had
view
to
of
worry
Phoenix.
about that much, until now.
Yeah.
Because the East, we always had plenty of water, but that's not going to be the case if we keep going. That's one nice thing about living in Tennessee. It's still got a lot of water, but who knows what the future holds. Okay, moving on.
That's the Space Museum in Alamogordo. I was shooting out of the 5th floor there, looking at. You can see the white sands on the horizon there, but
The distance.
I didn't know how much connection White Sands had with the space program, and I found that to be an interesting visit. It was a lot of cool stuff in there, and all the stuff they've tested out at the missile range there at Holloman Air Force Base and whatnot.
Philip, that yellow plane, missile, whatever, there at the lower center of the picture,
Yeah,
that looks a whole lot like the X-15.
yeah, but it's not. It's a missile of some sort.
I know, but
I-
the
I
design
walked
and
through
everything.
there.
Yeah, but the design and everything is really close. Like maybe they were swapping ideas around.
Yeah,
But-
or even an F-104 for that matter.
Yeah.
Same wing platform looks like.
Oops.
Must be a moose on the loose.
He forgot to mute his phone or his thing. Any idea what that blue building with the white roof is?
No, I don't. Oh yeah, there was a kids museum on the next parking lot down. There was a kids museum down there that's tied to this place. I think they had maybe like a little movie theater thing in there and whatnot. I didn't go in there, but I could have. That was part of the ticket, but I just didn't see it.
Mike said, "What did Mark say?"
Unfortunately, I was cussing at a dog that was chewing something up that he wasn't supposed to, and I apologize.
What's his name? Boudreaux?
His name is Boudreaux.
I thought maybe you were chasing a moose off.
No, not this time. Sorry, folks.
We couldn't understand you really. It just I kind of guessed, but that's just because I know you. I think I've been to this. I think we toured this a little bit when I went to Philmont in the 70s with the Boy Scouts. I think this museum area was on I'm not positive, but it looks like it. But we went by White Sands also, So I mean, something like this could have been at White Sands where we visited. I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah, I do know there's a missile museum on the east side of the road after you pass White Sands that's tied in with the Holloman Air Force Base thing and the missile people. Is he chasing again?
he's doing something, and Tina's taking up for the dog. He's so maligned. He's so maligned. I think he's deserving it, Tina. He's going through. Although Mark says he's out of baby teeth, he should be through with this chewing thing, but he's still going at it. And we'll move on a little bit.
With a name like Boudreaux, did he come from Cajun country?
No, he came from Utah, but Boudreaux Campbell is Shauna, his wife's favorite bull rider.
Okay.
So they named him Boudreaux after Boudreaux Campbell. It's a real guy. And this is White Sands. I hope he gets back in here before I flip off this one. I got a glimpse of the time here, and I realized that I'm running long. Of course, naturally, I always do. But I wanted Mark to comment on the White Sands. Mark lived just across the Oregons from the White Sands, but he has a good buddy that worked in there, and I'm sure he was in there a few times too. But this is, that's gypsum sand. It's not or part of it is anyway.
And it's gypsum. It's not sand.
Right, and it's a different kind of animal. Mark, I was showing the White Sands. We moved up one while you were thrashing the dog, but
No, he wasn't getting thrashed.
Tina said poor Boudreaux, he's so maligned. And then she's talking about Danny. He's 5 or 6, and he still chews things up. The dog's full of mischief this morning, Mike says.
So a friend of mine that I went to grad school with moved to Las Cruces about a month after I did, and he was from Montana. And we went out to, huh?
You're talking about Doug?
No, Norm Merles.
Okay.
And we went out to White Sands together, and he had his dog with him, and that dog went over and that dog grew up in Montana in the snow.
Oh no.
And he got hot and went over and took him a big old mouthful of white sand. Funniest thing I ever saw.
Bet the dog didn't think so. Probably didn't cure his thirst well either.
Not worth a darn, but
I was also telling Phil about your buddy Doug. He grew up in that area, didn't he?
well, no, he was from Grand Junction, Colorado, but he went to undergrad there and then grad school. So he'd been in that country for a while, but he works there at White Sands.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Phil. He knows it really well, and he works there now. But he did a lot of herpetology stuff. And I don't know, what is he over there?
Still does. Well, I don't know. He might be retired now, but he was doing that last I talked to him.
That's true. He could be. If he went in straight out of school, he was doing that before I went back to college, or about the same time. Anyway, it's kind of an interesting place. And this is in New Mexico. This is well, I don't know. I guess this is still Las Cruces, technically.
Yeah.
Spotted dog.
It's in Mesilla, below the interstate.
Yeah, across the river.
But yeah, I was telling Tim yesterday that if you go to Louisiana, you got to eat crawfish. Well, if you go to New Mexico, you got to find some green chili. So I found this place, I'm going to say about 3 visits ago, passing through, and I'm always on the lookout for craft beer, of course, and I found this place, and they had green chili cheeseburgers on the menu. So This was, I think this was my third visit, this particular burger. And I had to sit outside. It was a little bit cold. It's a small venue, so that it was packed, and because it was Friday night, and so I sat out there and enjoyed my green chili cheeseburger and my IPA.
We have some comments here on the side.
So are they putting those chilies on, Phil, just splitting a chili in half? And
No, this was chopped. They were roasted, but it was chopped. It was a coarse chop.
so they weren't just, because I mean, that used to be the burgers I got there were they would have two big green chilies, and they just split them down the middle and
put it on there like a bacon burger.
And gut them and then put them on there like bacon. Exactly.
Yeah.
Tina seems to find that concept questionable, and Mike says it looks pretty good.
It's
Oh,
What,
good.
what about that, Tina? You've got question marks. You don't like green chili? Never seen green chili, or just not something that sounds appetizing?
Green chili as in the pepper, not chili like you'd make, a pot of chili.
But not like green bell peppers. These are green.
No, these are long, skinny things.
Well, and Hatch is just north of Cruces and Mesilla there, which
Right.
is the most famous place in the world for green chilies. And
Yeah, that's there's a unique atmosphere there for growing chili in New Mexico there, and there's several regions there. There's that region that you speak of, and then Chimayo's got their own variety of chili up there in the north.
right. But they could turn the water off on those chilies and make you could grow a great big, they could control the heat of the chili
Yes.
by how much they watered it. And they'd make little bitty green chilies that didn't get much water that I couldn't eat. They were too hot.
And Mark pointed out and reminded me yesterday, you don't want to inhale them down your windpipe either. Or chilies. You remember that, Phil? You were with us. I got that salsa down my windpipe, and I thought I was going to die.
Talking about
But I couldn't stop coughing.
Norton.
That's where we were. We were eating those fine gorditas.
Can you remember the name of that place, Mark?
No, we talked about this yesterday. I don't.
I didn't know if you know. Tina says no.
I could take you. I could drive you right today to that spot, but I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah,
I remember where it's located, but not the name.
Which part again, Tina? What part you don't want the big cold beer with it, or you don't like the green chilies? Now that you're calling it green chilies, the pepper I love. Oh, okay. She thought you were making green chili. Well, I've actually seen green.
Yeah,
they make green chili too.
They make green chili too, Tina. I have seen that.
I had some green chili in Alamogordo that just absolutely set me on fire. It was like beef and just green chili. And it was a side, and I was eating it with French fries, and it literally burnt me up.
Mike, there is a cold beer sitting there. See it right up there? Phil said they serve it in imperial pints, which is more than we get here. You might get yours in that size.
Talking about gorditas there, many years ago on one of my trips out there with my buddy Dale, we hit the gordita place there in Deming that Least Heat Moon had done in his book.
Yeah.
Only it wasn't called the Manhattan Cafe anymore, but it was the same place, and we had gorditas there, and they were fine.
And that, it's a regional food. You only find them in that, like southern New Mexico and in West Texas, like from Van Horn west, you find them there, and then just a little bit of northern Mexico. That's the only place I've ever seen them.
I'll tell you something. If you ask a Mexican chef, which there's lots of Mexican chefs in this country, I'll tell you, and a lot of Mexican cooks cook it for all kinds of restaurants. You ask most of them what a gordita is, and they just look at you and scratch their heads. Because
Yeah,
they're not from that country.
it's a very regional
Yeah.
food.
Yeah,
that-
that joke that they sell at Taco Bell, that is not a gordita.
that's not a gordita.
That's just a fat tortilla.
Yeah, I should have pointed that out. That's not even a gordita. Tina
Yeah.
says, "What makes green chili green?" Since chili powder is red, or makes things red.
They do turn red. That's where you see the ristras and stuff, where they weave up the big dry chili things there. They will turn red, but they harvest them when they're green, and that's why they're green. They're not matured yet.
I'd say they're not using the same kind of chili powder. They're probably adding hot spices that won't.
Commercial chili powder has got chili powder in it, cumin, salt, and some other stuff. It's not just pure chili product.
We used to go and buy green chilies by the bag, and you'd get them roasted, and then you'd take them home and peel them.
Yeah,
I couldn't touch I was always bad about wanting to scratch my eye or something. You don't do that more than once.
I had a buddy that I worked with here at Standard Arrow who came from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and his mom would send him a big box of green chilies every year, looked like 20 pounds. And
Yeah.
he'd have a big deal roasting them on his grill down at his house, and doing all kinds of stuff with green chilies before freezing the rest of them.
If you're still on here, Carol, that's probably the only view of Teddy you're going to get today. A minute ago, he was laying upside down, but of course, by the time I got the camera down here, he rolled over to a more normal position. But as you can see, he's not too overly excited about green chilies.
He's not ready for his close-up yet.
No, his makeup's not done. Anyway, let me put this back up here now. Well, now I'll have a hard time getting this put up. I'll try to not make anybody seasick.
But going back to Tina's comment there, you can buy green chili powder from these dealers out there. They do dry them and grind them up, and you can make green chili. Whatever you'd make, like enchilada sauce. That's where I would think of it.
Yeah. And they used to make green chili. They used to have a green chili sauce at Taco Bell, but I don't know if they do anymore. You could ask for it.
Yeah.
If you wanted it on your burritos or something, they would put it in there instead of the red. And
Diana was asking if they're hotter than red chilies, and they can be.
Yes, sir.
They can be as hot as habaneros if you do them wrong.
or right, depending on how you look at it, I guess. What is Tina saying? It probably doesn't matter what color they are. It's more about the water, sunlight, and soil that season. We grew habaneros for a couple of years. It's like Russian roulette.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. If you plant the wrong chilies close to like your sweet peppers and your green, bell peppers, you'll get hot bell peppers too. That happens from time to time.
A little cross-pollination there.
Cross-pollination, yeah, it goes a long way. Let's see now. Put everybody back where they belong. Up. And now this place is cool, I thought.
This is the Palace Bar and Whiskey Row in Prescott, Arizona. And right there on the town square, there's just a whole line of dives like this. And this place's claim to fame was this is where the Earps and Doc Holliday hung out before they went to Tombstone.
Yes, and this particular bar
doesn't match the time they were in there because the place burned. And then they rebuilt it and put this bar in it, and it burned again in 1902. And they actually carried all this stuff out the door before it burned. So that's an authentic bar from the late 1800s, but not the Earp era there. But that was a pretty cool place. We had dinner there.
So they actually carried all that woodwork outside the bar. They got everybody in the bar. I can just imagine that, all the cowboys and the worn out, dusty riders and the farm workers and everybody else just picking all that stuff up and carrying it outside. Save the whiskey, boys. Save the whiskey. The hell with the rest of the place.
All the people that worked in there all had this period dress on, like you see the lady behind the bar there. She's looks pretty period perfect. I won't say anything.
That's why her green peppers are so spicy. And Mike says, let me know how that goes for you, Mike. I'd like to ask for something like that too.
That's like the Seinfeld episode where they had the Merv Griffin set that he dug out of the dumpster and put in his house.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a pretty cool old bar, and like he said, Doc Holliday and the Earps hung out there at one time, and before they were already starting whatever stuff they had going on, because they are heroes of the Wild West. They were into about as much stuff as the other guys were. They had their own schemes and scandals. Now, this is near your sister's house.
This is, I walked up to the, out of the canyon and up on the ridge. This box canyon is like a horseshoe shape. And I walked up there and looked over into the valley there, and that's Chino Valley with all the houses and stuff that you can see. And then if you look in the far background on the left, those peaks sticking up are the peaks at Flagstaff, which is 90 miles away by air. And then that's
right back here on the very far horizon.
Yes. Yeah, that's Humphreys Peak is the tallest one, but they call them the San Francisco Peaks, and that's up there behind Flagstaff. And then that's Mingus Mountain on the right. And Jerome and Sedona and Cottonwood are all behind that. And that's a pretty cool place to visit too. Jerome's an old silver town that is slowly sliding over the hill there. They mined the heck out of it. What happens in the garage stays in the garage.
Yeah, you get them used to that garage live in their car. They don't like to go back. My wife is not a big fan of having to park her car outside at all anymore. But I thought that's pretty neat. And what I thought was really neat was if you really look, you can see all the old volcanoes out there. I mean, this looks like almost a perfect example of one that's washed down and eroded over the years. I mean, there's the rim and the crater right there, Caldera, whatever it was called. And, the mountain itself is just slowly eroded down in here and beyond. And, what comes off these mountains builds these areas up and downstream if there is a stream. Every time there's a rain out there, it goes away, which isn't very often. So, but that one right in the middle of the picture is almost a perfect cone. Typical, or what we think of as volcanic shape.
Yeah. No, all the greenery there, that's all pinyon pine and juniper.
Do they ever go looking for pinyon nuts in that country?
I did. Yeah, once I knew about them after we went to the Boot Hill that time with Mark, and the birds always get to them. Well, I don't get out there at the right time of the year, I guess. But there's these little jays out there called pinyon jays. They don't look like they're blue, but they don't have the crested head like our jays do. But those birds really pick those trees clean, both of the juniper berries and the pinyon nuts.
Man, I like those things. I still like those things. Are a gourmet delicacy too back east. They're not cheap to buy to put in your
Well,
salad. But they sure
That's
are
what
good.
you put in pesto too.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
like the
they've
way.
lost a lot of their pinyon trees. A lot of that pinyon pine in northern Arizona and northern New Mexico is gone because
Really?
Beetle.
because of bark beetles.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of dead wood out
Damn,
here in
that's
this
rough.
canyon. We cut 4 trees while I was out there for firewood. They use that stuff for firewood, but it it burns like popcorn. But I never saw any stuff that has so much pitch in it. It just literally runs out as you're sawing it. But,
Mark and I
we-
talked about that recently too, because they have that problem kind of up there that all that pitch, as you say, likes to clog up chimneys real fast.
Fast.
Yeah, my sister runs a pellet stove now, but they used to heat with an old earth stove. That was the brand name, and that's what they burn because you can't get any hardwood.
Oh,
out
yeah,
there. It's all
yeah.
it's all
I told-
pinyon pine and juniper.
I think somebody could probably make a ton of money. I think if you could haul firewood out west and sell, hickory and oak, I think people would love to have it. And
Yeah,
probably
we need to share our bugs with them.
Yeah, exactly. Take our bugs west. Let me see what's going on over here.
What kind of pine beetle was that, Mark?
Well, they're called longhorn beetles. I don't know what I don't know if it was specific to just pinyon, or if they're the exact same beetle that we have up here that are killing lodgepole pines and even some fir
we have
trees.
that southern white pine beetle here. Isn't that what those were, Tim?
Well, there was, I guess, a combination of things. They were southern pine beetles.
Okay.
Most of the ones we had didn't actually prefer white pine because that is more of a northern pine. But they actually did as they ran out of southern pines, yellow pines, and like Virginia pines and loblolly and all that kind of thing. They damn sure got into the white pine stands around here because they decided that if you could get into them and you're out of everything else, I guess you'd eat them. But they just wreaked havoc here. I mean, they wiped out so many nice seed orchards and just, not to mention what they did to the pulpwood industry. They had to cut a lot of wood real quick to salvage any of it.
We have whole mountain ranges that every pine tree on the mountain is red and dead, and they just they're a real fire hazard when they're still got needles on them.
Yeah.
And once those needles fall, those things will stand there forever
out there,
and not. They're just big dead tree. Whole giant stands of dead trees. And
weird thing about them back here is the beetles we had, when they infect a tree or infest a tree, whatever, when they leave some kind of a fungus.
Yeah.
And that fungus makes the tree interior of the tree turn blue.
Yeah, so ours do the same thing.
Well, ours rot super fast.
Yeah, and you gotta, if you're gonna harvest those trees, and like the Uinta Mountain south of me here, the whole North Slope's dead trees, and it's miles and miles and miles and miles of trees, and we weren't getting the cold temperatures in the winter that kind of kept those beetles at bay.
Yeah,
and they just took off and just killed everything, and now they're nobody wants to harvest that timber.
No good.
So it's just standing there dead, and nothing's growing underneath it, and it's a mess. And it just, when the winds come along, it blows it down and makes it, you just can't even get there from here anymore, kind of a deal.
And what they found back here was they couldn't sell it for pulp or anything because it, after it had been down for, I swear this is the truth. And it's probably related to humidity and stuff too. But because of that, as soon as they were dead, within a few months, they were rotten.
Yeah.
I mean, lumber people didn't want to mess with them because they were a hazard, and plus they couldn't do anything with them. Now,
Right.
what they did do, if you could go in there and harvest them quick enough and salvage some of it, they were selling the lumber as blue pine lumber because it had that blue tinge to it. And it was still decent lumber, but if it's very long or laid on the ground, it was gone.
And it's funny because that stuff, if you like my neighbor cut, I don't know how many trees they cut and had them sawn. They wanted to put a new like board floor in their house, and they used that blue streak lumber. And it's beautiful stuff, but you gotta, if you don't put it inside, if you stack it outside, it just turns regular colored eventually.
Oh, does it? Well, I know they tried to monetize that back here, blue mountain pine and blue streak pine, but like I said, they a lot of it they just couldn't do it. We just had to grind it up or something. It wasn't any good for anything else.
Well, you remember that our house in Jonesboro, Dad and I had paneled the whole basement with that stuff, and it was blue streaked. And as long as the sun doesn't shine on it, it stays that color forever. But
I don't even remember that being that way.
if you open it up to the sunlight, it goes away.
Oh, wow. Okay, next picture here. And this is on your way home, as I recall.
Yes, that's just north of El Paso on US 62. So that's Guadalupe Mountain National Park. And that's the highest point in Texas there on I think they call that El Capitan, that big massive sticking up there.
Now, how far away from that, Mark, is Caitlin and?
Well, if you turn around and go back the other way, just about an hour.
Okay.
But we were just through there in June on this highway right here. And, we went to Carlsbad. Huh?
I thought you were.
Yeah. And but it was like 100 gazillion degrees there in June. And hopefully Phil had a bit nicer temperatures than we did.
Oh yeah, it was in the 50s that day.
Nice.
It was windier than all get out, but it was just nice. You can see the sky and stuff. It was a beautiful day.
Yeah,
that's the second time I've been by there.
Back in June, they were having a lot of fires in that country, and it was just smoky, and we had some pretty bad sandstorm days or dust storm days. And that's a good place to go look for dust devils right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great big ones.
And this is a couple other eateries. Like he said earlier, he looks out for some of these are. This is not a craft beer.
Abilene, Texas is, I would have to call that a craft beer desert.
Yeah.
That's Lone Star. It was $3 a pint that night. So I was drinking Lone Star and eating I can't even remember what was on that burger. But
big piece of lettuce.
Yeah. The fries were good, but
the onion rings look good to me. I like that kind of onion rings, that real light battered.
Yeah. Yeah, they're actually on top of the burger. That was one of the features of the burger there. That was kind of like their house special or something. I can't remember what they called it, but I plopped down there at the bar beside the shoe there that you can see, which is one of the lampshade things like in the Christmas Story. And some dude come up, and asked the bartender, what?
Line from the movie when he's out there looking at it is when he said, "That's a major award. I won that." And he said, "Hell, you say?" The other guy standing there beside him, and they kind of blurred a little bit, but he says, How damn hell you say? You won that? And then the next guy pops up and that guy said, he won that.
And then the second dinner here on the right was what I had to choose from after I found out the brewery across the street from it wasn't open on Tuesday. So I missed out on craft beer in West Monroe and had to settle for a $6 Blue Moon
I
and a
think
chicken salad wrap.
and was the potato salad any good?
Yeah, the potato salad was good. It was kind of like a smoked mustard potato salad.
That sounds.
And we were sitting there eating, there are other people in there and listening to tornado warnings going off on the TV.
I was getting ready to say, Phil, we hadn't talked about this, but on the way home, Phil was basically trying to stay ahead of really bad weather and try to avoid some of it. So, and that leads me to the next picture, which is this. And you're standing, I believe, in the parking lot at your hotel or motel.
Yeah, that's looking to the southeast there. Yeah, southeast. And there was tornadoes storming up that valley, one after the other that night. But they didn't come over as far as Monroe. I was lucky there. Dodged a tornado, as you might say.
Yeah, that's starting to get to be some stuff back in there.
And then the next morning, as I left, it was just solid, clear, no clouds. I mean, that cold front pushed out everything, and the temperature was about 25 degrees lower than it was the previous day.
Wow. Did you end up in that weather when you left here and came on up to Tennessee?
Not at all. I didn't. I hit some rain here and there on from between Birmingham and Chattanooga, but not. The system had already pushed out. It was moving fast.
I think Alabama might have had a couple of tornadoes out of this.
Mississippi did too.
Yeah. Then I think it scooted on south of us, and then it kind of got into that country and sort of zipped on across. But
yeah, there was a big cold front pushing that because it was like 76 degrees when I was standing out there, and then the next morning it was down in the low 50s.
I don't know if this is sunrise or set in the Saguaros, and this wasn't Phil's picture. I just found this to put in here, but I thought it made a good ending photo. But those giant saguaros are a big deal in Arizona, and the bloom on that is actually their state flower. I don't know if I said that earlier.
I think those are specific to the Sonoran Desert too. I don't think they're in
maybe
the Chihuahuan Desert. And when you're going down 17, you don't see the first of the saguaros until you top that drop off of
Black Canyon City.
Sunset Point. You remember where that's at on 17?
Yeah.
Just as you drop off of Sunset Point, you see the first one of those saguaros there. And
right.
Then, then they're just, at Black Canyon City, it's full of them down there. And
cool.
Of course, the national parks down there in Tucson that features that cactus.
But you just get just east of Tucson, heading towards Wilcox, and you hit the borderland between the Sonoran and the Chihuahuan Desert. And no more saguaros.
And that's not easy to say. Okay, well, actually, it's not too late. I thought it might be even later than that, but it is 12:08. So, any questions? Man, I miss Ian today. I wonder where he's at. Hope he's not sick again. Diana is not scraping car windows. That came from the garage discussion here on the side. So Mike may or may not have his bar in the garage yet. So it'd be all right. They'll have to put your jackets on when Diana opens the door and drives into the garage. And the cold wind's blowing through. But other than that, it'll be pretty good. You can probably warm it up fast, Mike, with the right heater. But anywho, I thought
I definitely want to drive back out there again. There's just too much fascinating stuff to see on all those old highways.
Yeah. Do you see any parts of 66 when you're out there?
No, that's up,
Up
that follows the I-40 corridor. I
Yeah.
haven't been across I-40 out to go out there for years. I've pretty much, just gone down I-20 or across I-10, depending on, of course, it's a lot farther that way, but the weather's just so sketchy there in the wintertime on the 40 corridor.
Yeah, and you go through Flagstaff. That's awful
Yeah.
country.
You actually used to go through there before 40 was finished through there, didn't you?
Yeah, my first trip out there, 40 actually ended at
Douglas?
Williams.
Williams.
Williams, Arizona, opposed that highway forever, because they didn't want to get bypassed, and you had to sit there and go 25 miles an hour through Williams to get on to the next section of it. I think at Ash Fork maybe, but yeah, and then a couple of sections in Texas weren't done too, around Shamrock, I believe.
Yeah, they didn't want to lose that trade.
That was 1976.
I wonder how they look today. I wonder how those towns or cities look. If they really died or if they just didn't lose as much as they thought, or how that worked out. Just out of curiosity. Well, guys, I think I've probably taken up much of your time today as we can. I thought this would be fun because Mark's lived out there. Phil's been out there a few times. I've been part way. I haven't been into Arizona. Well, might have been in the edge of Arizona, actually. Mark, you took us up to a high ridge where we were looking down into
Gallon Canyon.
Yeah. Well, we went up on a ridge. That's where we saw that little banded rock rattler that was under that you guys stepped over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we had.
Looking down into it, like Douglas area over towards.
You had to drop on over. You're on the Geronimo Trail there, and I mean, you definitely got into Arizona because you had to. From that saddle we were parked at where we were looking, you had to drop down the hill to go down there and turn around. So
okay,
was that critter dinner we went to? Was that at Antelope Wells?
Was it which, Phil?
You remember the critter dinner we went to where the guy had the javelina burritos?
Yeah, that was down at the Gray Ranch there.
Yeah.
You were within rock chucking distance of Sonora and Chihuahua there.
Yeah,
I mean, that place was right down on the border.
Look out that guy's back door, and the border was actually like a barbed wire fence.
Yep.
Yeah, with big white signs. I remember the signs. Yeah. You can see them from the house. I mean, I'm going to look that up. Antelope. I know there is an Antelope Well down there.
Yeah, it's right down on the border there in the Boot Heel.
It might be on the east slope, though.
Yeah, that could be.
Of the Animas Range. I can't
will
remember.
say you've been in a lot of cool places in your life, Mark. A lot of cool places.
I've been fortunate. I've seen some pretty nice country. I tend to avoid the human concentrations like the plague, and
yeah, I sometimes I wish I would have chosen a different vocation than what I did, and had the tendency to just stay in one place for so many years, because I mean, I've only had like maybe 5 jobs in aviation, and I stayed at one 12 years, and I stayed at this one 24 years. So you tend to get a little dug in there.
Look there, he's got a map.
Yeah, I wanted to have it with me in case I need it for something.
If there's any young people, that's called a map.
That's called a map. Yeah, this was
That's
early
right.
That's GPS here.
Yeah, that's called MAP, Manual Assisted Positioning.
Exactly. I pride myself on being able to read a damn map. You give me a quad map or a topo map, and I can find my way around just about anywhere. Antelope Wells is a little further east, Phil.
Okay.
It's on the, it's over on the, in the valley,
Well,
east
it's on 81. There's a Highway 81 over
east of the Animas Range.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
And that, so I don't know if you got, I don't know if you guys met old lad Pendleton that was a ranch owner.
I didn't. No, we didn't. We never did.
But he was born at Antelope Wells in about, I don't know, 1898 or something. And his folks homesteaded that ranch that was north of my cabin. And he rode from Antelope Wells when he was 3 years old, horseback all the way to that place there north of my cabin. So
Wow.
3 years old. He was old enough that they still had a few Bronco Apaches left running around in that part of the world, in northern Mexico and the Boot Hill, and every now and again they would have mules come up missing and things like that. So
Mike wanted to know if you know if there's ever been any Bigfoot sightings in Arizona.
I don't think they have any claim on Bigfoot.
They don't have a version, a desert version at all. I mean,
I never heard of any critters like that. Down there, it was chupacabras.
Chupacabras, yeah. Right.
And there was some kind of bat creature too that lived down south of Tucson or something. But
I think one of Mom's kin folks went out there one time trying to do the Lost Dutchman mine thing in the superstitions.
Yeah. I saw a show on Discovery or History Channel last year where this guy says he thinks he knows where it's at now.
Well, of course, but he hadn't gone there and got anything.
No, he was trying to.
Yeah.
Mike says Bigfoot's everywhere, just like Santa Claus. Well, Mike, if that's true, let's hope he never learns how to do that down the chimney trick. Because if he does, we're all in trouble.
That might
Well,
be.
I saw that
big,
documentary on Harry and the Hendersons. He's a nice animal.
Bigfoot might be related to Krampus. Now.
That documentary, that's hilarious. I love Mark on how this week on Outside the Barrel. I don't know how many times I've heard what's his name?
Clint Rasmussen.
Clint remind everybody that Yellowstone is not a documentary.
It's not a documentary.
People come out there looking for it and crap and want to know all about Yellowstone. That version of Yellowstone. Clint says it's not a documentary, people.
He was poking fun at it because it's always summertime.
Yeah.
And then he showed that picture of Elk Park, Montana, -22, buried under snow.
Yeah, he said they don't ever show that part of it.
Like this is what his ranch looks like today.
Yeah, I just find that hilarious. Yeah, TV towns are. I don't know what you think they are.
Calves come out with already ear tagged, 100 pounds.
And branded.
Already branded.
Yellowstone doesn't exist. I told you I live my life by that show. Sorry, Mike. No, it's another one of those I have to say I've never seen. I don't know. I don't think I want them to messing with my vision of Yellowstone country. You know, I know it ain't perfect, but That's a lot of God's country out there. All right, guys, I'm going to shut her down. I think let people go about their daily business. I know there's at least one football game on today. I don't know if there's any more Army. This is today's Army-Navy game, so I'll probably watch that. And tonight's the last night for the National Finals Rodeo, so you can bet your uncle I'll be watching that.
We're going to have withdrawals.
Yeah, it's all. That's why I record it and keep it, because I have to watch it again. I used to keep it all year long and kind of wean myself off where I could erase it about late November, and then I'd have the new one to record, 1st of December. But yeah, it's going to be rough. Thank goodness we still have bull riding though, so it won't be gone.
That round 8 was the best round of rodeo I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Wasn't there some strange things last night in the roping? At least in the half roping, tie down roping. It was a typical round 9. I mean, guys great goes on good calves, and they would just flat miss them or run out through the loop. Wow! I just never seen anything like that. I can't remember who was it that roped one, and the damn calf stepped through the loop, and all he had was his back feet.
That was cool.
I've never seen that.
22 seconds, but he got it down.
Well, he stuck with him, yeah. All right, guys. Thank y'all for coming. I hope you've enjoyed our little visit to Arizona.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, man, anytime. Love it. Love having you here and get to talk about things like that and places you've been and some places I've been, and we've been, or Mark's been. If you cross the Mississippi, Mark's probably been there. And,
Where?
I said, if you cross the Mississippi.
Side.
Yeah, on your side. Yeah. He's probably been there, but, and Phil's a well-worn traveler too. So.
Yeah, but most of my stuff's been in the Southwest since that's where my folks went. That's what drove me to a lot of my tourism.
Yeah, but you've been there.
That and my buddy Dale, so.
All right, guys. I'm going to let everybody go. Mike.
Good to see you, PD.
Tina. See you guys.
You too, Uncas.
Have a good weekend. I'm going to shut down here, guys. All right, Phil. I appreciate you coming.